We are recording. This is the Beer Scholar Family Hour. I'm Chris Cohen, creator of Beer Scholar. Founded it back in, I think it was 2013. I'm an Advanced Cicerone National BJCP judge, co-founder of the San Francisco Homebrewers Guild, and Old Devil Moon, a top beer joint in San Francisco. And I've got with me Scott Fielder, Advanced Cicerone, and Chris Crowe, who will be an Advanced Cicerone in probably 2 days. And in fact, he may already be one, and he just doesn't know it yet.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, man. You're nervous? You seem like you're not too nervous.
It's one of those things, it's like all the rational parts of my brain, based on what I know, tell me I will be an Advanced Cicerone when I get the email. And all the irrational parts of my brain are telling me, I don't know, man. What if they grade this a little bit differently than you think they would?
Right.
So there's always creeping doubt.
So you took the tasting port. You already passed the written portion. You took the tasting portion just like a few weeks ago. And
yep.
How do you know? Are they definitely supposed to be reaching out this week?
They said in the email leading up to getting ready for the exam, they say within 4 weeks is the language that they use.
Got it.
And it seems like it's been a little bit earlier than that. The end of this week will be 3 weeks, which was right about the time that Scott got his results when he took the advanced tasting by itself. So we're kind of hoping that, especially since they don't seem slammed with grading right now, it's sort of like a little bit of the lull. There's not like a million advanced writtens to grade or something like that maybe I'll get a little lucky in here this week. So.
Yeah, dude. Well, obviously.
Yeah, and they've got a written exam coming up in March in about a month, so it would probably behoove them to get this grading out of the way so that they can be ready to, because obviously the written is going to take a little longer.
Yeah, a lot more to grade on that one, I imagine. And so, and Scott, you just passed it how long? Just a couple months.
End of September of 2021 was the last day of September was when I found out.
Very cool. So congrats to you, and I think we'll be saying the same thing to Chris here in a couple of days, hopefully. So that's super exciting.
I brought a lot of good beer, so it's either celebratory or to not feel what you're feeling.
Yeah, drown the sorrows.
Get the job done either way.
The sorrows of knowing that you have to retake. I had to retake the tasting for the advanced. It was a bummer, but I knew, that's the beauty of the tasting exam is you kind of know before you even know officially. I knew that I had failed it that very day. I knew that I almost certainly had passed the written, but had flopped on the tasting. So, it's nice to get the answers right before you even leave. So we've got so this is the first podcast that we're doing. It's going to be a little messy, I imagine. It's going to be kind of goofy. We got to get in our groove. This is the first time we've used all this technology. So there's that bunch of variables. And, but I'm pretty excited. I don't really have even a definite name yet for the podcast. I'm thinking the Beer Scholar Family Hour is kind of funny. But we can, if our audience of my mom has any suggestions, please let me know. Hopefully it'll be more than just my mom after a month or so, but we'll see. So one thing that happened recently that was a pretty big deal is the BJCP released the brand new 2021 guidelines. And I put out there on social media that I would do a breakdown of all the changes. And so that seems like maybe something we should focus on for our first podcast.
First point of clarification, is it the 2021 or is it 2022? I can't remember.
It's 2021.
What year they put on it.
Yeah.
It's 2021? Okay.
Yeah.
It got released so late, I wasn't sure if they were trying to release it at the end of that, and then it was going to kind of seem like it was the 2022, but it's officially 2021. Okay.
I don't know why they did that. Honestly, it's odd, but they did the same thing with the old ones. They didn't even release them until the following year actually, but they still named them 2015, even though they were released in 2016, because they were done officially in 2015. It was something weird like that, if I recall. But yeah, I don't know. So
it's like the opposite of the vehicle models. You know, you get the 2022 model at the very end of 2021, and they flipped it for us.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Those guys are weird. I mean, you know, I'm sure there's a lot we could say about the BJCP and the strange way that they do things. But I don't know. You know, we split up the different styles. Chris, you were going to do 1 through 9. I took 10 through 20. And Scott, you took 21 through 27. I've got all my notes here. So I was thinking we could just kind of go through my stuff if you want to do that first, even though it is 10 through 20. You guys?
Yeah, that sounds good though.
Sounds good.
Any orders is good.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Who cares?
Yeah, and
I don't need to go in order.
And I think if we kind of, you know, are seeing some similarities, you know, because obviously like which vital stats have changed or commercial examples, those will all be unique. But if we're kind of seeing if you're saying things and we're seeing a general trend, I think it would be great that we'll just kind of point out this seems like it's happening throughout, and then we just don't have to repeat. You know,
that's true. No, I definitely noticed. I noticed some interesting trends when I was looking at the ones I think
we're gonna, and I think we're all gonna kind of be on the same page. So I agree. Let's kind of work through it. We'll kind of acknowledge what we think are global changes that we're seeing amongst all the different styles, and then obviously we'll all be able to look at, you know, the ones that are very specific to our sections.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, to me, right out of the gate, the intro was what is always kind of interesting, right? That's where they just talk about why they do things the way they do. And, you know, that entire first page is basically like an explanation of their conventions, how they do things, and then also like an advanced apology for inevitably offending lots of people.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's so funny. Like you can't, it's just one of the reasons I love this community is how geeky it is, you know, but you can't really make a statement about styles. People feel this like connection to their styles that they love and the ones that are from where they are from and that kind of stuff. So there's always so much fighting around it. And also I just think a lot of people feel like, just generally, that like breaking down beer styles to this extent is sometimes just unnecessary and takes the fun out of beer. Obviously we don't feel that way, but
yep. Yeah, that's how Belgium feels. So
right. So yeah, I mean, a couple funny comments in there. They're not necessarily new ones to the 2021, but you know, they're saying like these aren't the 10 commandments. We're not the beer police. This one was good. If you find yourself parsing the guidelines like you're trying to find a secret message in a song played backwards, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
They have gotten some weird emails because these don't sound just like made up. These sound like people have emailed them and complained and said, you know, there's something. What are you really trying to say here? Why is this medium? Why is it medium plus here, but medium full here? Is there what is the? Yeah, there's no tricks. They're not dry good.
I mean, I'll be honest, when I was studying for advanced, when I was doing like the exam for the national BJCP, like I was looking at those kind of things, trying to figure out like, you know, do those statements, do those certain words correlate to certain number ranges and things like that. And it's like, they kind of do, but not really, not like as a law or something. But anyway.
I feel like that was something they tried to improve for this one.
Yeah, I think they did.
Because we found the same thing. We would be doing oral exams for each other based on beer styles, and if you got the SRM right for the vital stats, it wasn't always. Then when we had people talking about appearance, it was. I know I did. I don't know about you, Chris, but I often just went off of what I thought the SRM was, and that's how I described the appearance. But since that wasn't always super tight, then you were technically wrong because that's not what it said. But I think from what I noticed, they've kind of tightened up on that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they did too. And by the way, I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna pop a beer here. I've got a P. Freem hazy IPA. Probably can't say.
We're gonna hear their name a lot. They're one of the breweries that got a few additions here. We were just kind of skimming through some of them, and
that's right.
They're making some noise.
Yeah, just outside of Portland. Well, not just, but in Hood River. So I just moved to Portland recently, and these guys I haven't visited yet because they're not in the city, but I'm looking forward to it. And I saw this 6-pack. I appreciate this. They still can in 12-ounce cans, at least for a lot of their stuff. Maybe all of it, I'm not sure, but I appreciate that. I like that more.
I think you'll enjoy that until you get their Pilsner, and you're going to want a case of 16-ounce cans.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I think that it cost them a lot more to do it that way, but maybe that's just what they're set up for. I don't know. Who knows? We'll find out when I go visit. But one thing that the BJCP said in their intro that I totally agree with is that they use the Oxford comma.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan. The Oxford comma. Come on, let's divvy the stuff up more specifically. It's more clear. It's more clear.
We're trying to separate everything as it is. Let's just make it very clear.
I know. I like how I feel like they really tried to think of everything before they got like shit on completely by like every person in the beer community. And by the way, the Beer Scholar Family Hour is not really for families. We can curse. We can do whatever we want. We're drinking beer.
Although we probably just lost, several potential customers when we advocated for the Oxford comma. That's going to be the thing that brings it down.
Right.
It's not some other opinion about beer.
Beer Scholar's been like going fairly strong for 8 or 10 years, but it's the Oxford comma, the politics around the Oxford comma.
That's been holding us back. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I had 10 through 20. So that is German wheat beer is 10. And I'm just gonna start going through this stuff, and you tell me what you think of any of it. 10A Weissbier, the bubblegum strawberry with banana flavor, as they describe it, in the aroma and the flavor, went from optional to being a fault. That's kind of crazy. I think my theory is that they are kind of making a statement about Blue Moon, maybe. Because I think it really has that like strawberry with banana bubblegum flavor that like a lot of the classic examples don't have.
Yeah.
I was like, I am more familiar with bubblegum showing up than strawberry. That's a...
No, they're saying that's the fault. So the bubblegum flavor, they describe it as like a strawberry with banana gum, like bazooka bubblegum kind of combo flavor.
You're saying that's a fault. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's kind of crazy because like I think banana is certainly acceptable. But
it has to be. If it's not, I quit. That's
right.
Yeah,
I know. You can't.
It's not supposed to be in Weissbier. You can, if we can cuss, you can fuck off. Then.
Yeah. No. So anyway, I thought that was pretty crazy. Again, I don't know. The first thing that popped in my head was I get that every time I have Blue Moon, I'm like, wow, it really tastes a lot different than the traditional versions with that big bubblegum thing, and I'm just wondering if that's. Who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, maybe it's like a subtler critique of like some of the American brewed Weissbier that is like kind of a cartoon of Weissbier, that's just got like that isoamyl character through the roof. Because some of the, some of the German ones are real big on some of that, but not as much as some of the like uber fresh American takes. So
yeah, that's what I think too. So another thing they said was they added that sourness and smoke aromas are false, which makes you wonder if people were like entering like versions of Weissbier with Brett in or something in competitions. I don't know. Sourness and smoke not acceptable. I think we all know that. A new note in appearance. They say that the haze comes not just from wheat, but also from yeast. And in the past, they only mentioned the high protein from wheat. So I don't know. That's just kind of interesting. The history section added that Schneider's kind of old school version of Weissbier was actually amber, and that the pale versions became popular only fairly recently. In the 60s, that part was already there, but the original was amber. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Even today, it's the darkest Weissbier by several shades of SRM. It feels like.
Yeah, Schneider's is.
Oh, yeah. We just did. Yeah, Chris put together a wine tasting, and me and Steve were both doing it. And he called it Dunkles Weissbier, and I called it Weissbier only because I am familiar with the fact that beer is relatively dark. For
interesting. See, this is the difference between someone who just prepped for the advanced exam and me who passed it like several years ago.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's very interesting. I'm gonna remember all these things for when I start prepping for the master.
Yeah.
He said it, everyone.
All right, it's out there in the world.
Well, we're gonna have an episode where we talk about that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Okay. Let's see. The ingredient section didn't really change much, but they had massively simplified the language used. So I think, if I recall, I noticed that was like a trend throughout the whole new BJCP, was just very simplified ingredient sections.
Did you notice that just in ingredients?
I'm trying to remember now, because I did go through this it was a couple weeks ago that I looked at it all. But yeah, I think I know in my section there was a lot of moving from for let's say Belgian dark strong, rather than saying the alcohol can be medium to high with a slightly this or that, it's just medium to high alcohol. Mm-hmm.
Or low esters, rather than kind of rambling on and on. There just seemed to be a lot of things that were changed for what seemed to be simply brevity, and that's
keeping it a little tighter. Yeah, no, I agree completely. Yeah, but I noticed in the ingredient section in particular that it was just like completely chopped down from how they did it in the past. I really love the style comparison section on the BJCP guidelines. That helps you kind of understand like where does this style fit in on these various spectra of beer. So I don't know. I just made a note of that. There's nothing new about it. I just really like that section. I think it was maybe new in 2016. And I remember being very impressed by that. But
yeah, I think that was like the big qualitative addition to the previous edition, right? There wasn't any focus on style comparison in the BJCP for the 2008 ones, but it does seem like, a little note for later that's something that Cicerone has taken to heart too. There seems to be a lot more depth to style comparison style questions.
Yeah, it's a good point. And if anyone is parsing them and treating them like the 10 Commandments, it is the Cicerone program and those of us who are taking those exams.
Right.
So let's see. The OG went up by 0.01 at its max. So it used to be 1044 to 1052. Now it's 1044 to 1053. I mean, that is kind of, I don't know. That's the kind of thing where you have to say like, sure, okay.
Yeah, was this a big problem? There are just so many Weissbiers rolling around with that 0.01 higher OG.
It's insane to me. I don't know. That's where you want to make these arguments that like, I don't know, maybe they should just pick an even number, round things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. Commercial examples. Paulaner was removed, and Distelhauser and Hofbrauhaus were added. And that's it for 10A. Next up is Dunkles Weissbier.
Paulaner, did you say Paulaner Hefeweizen
Yeah,
removed.
Polliner was removed from Weissbier.
That's good for us. We were speaking more blind tasting stuff. We both, I think, didn't we both call Polliner Weizenbock?
Yeah, we both on separate occasions blind tasted Polliner's, regular Weissbier. I think it's just called Hefeweizen Naturtrube, or however you say it. And we both called it a Weizenbock blind. You get the head games going about alcohol strength when you're practicing blind tasting, obviously. But it tasted like it punched a little above its weight.
It was surprising.
So. Okay. Wow, you guys are so dialed right now. It's
awesome. Thing is, I'm just not having to worry about that now anymore. Knowing that it's not on the BJCP, that's less likely we'll see it down the road in tasting. So
good point. Yeah, and Distelhauser and Hofbrauhaus, I can't really think of exactly what their Weissbiers are like, but they've been added, so they must be classic.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm really glad Hofbräu is getting a lot more play too, because I feel like I would just walk into any store and it's so well distributed, and it's like this is a Dunkel, this is a Weissbier, this is a Maibock, but they're not on the BJCP, so I've got to go look for something else. But they're just so easy to get that I'm glad they're a little bit more ubiquitous across the BJCP.
And I think the BJCP makes an effort to include like a variety that are kind of easy to find, but
yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah. So next up, Dunkles Weissbier 10B. Let's see. Overall impression: they removed this thing they used to say in some of their beer descriptions, where they would say like something about it that encourages drinking, like for you to like have a bunch of it or drink it fast or whatever.
Yeah,
I think that's a good move. I think trying to zap anything that seems like very obviously opinion or is suggestive of overconsumption, those are good things to get rid of. So that just struck me as kind of humorous. I mean, I'm sitting there with the old one and the new one, looking at line by line. I'm like, oh, they removed the get real drunk from this one line. That's good.
Yeah.
So let's see. So aroma and flavor, same as Weissbier now, and calling bubblegum a fault. It added that a touch of dry roastiness is now allowable for Dunkles Weissbier. Previously said that roast character was inappropriate, so that's kind of interesting. Rogan beer, which is basically a rye version of these beers, is now mentioned in the style comparison as being similar. But obviously without this one doesn't have the rye flavor and body, but also got a 0.01 max OG bump as did Weissbier. And that's it for 10B. So moving on to 10C.
That's why you can't drink to excess with them anymore, Chris.
Right.
It's the OG. It's the 0.01 OG bump.
It's adding all that extra alcohol at the max end of the OG scale. So next up is the Weizenbock 10C. Same bubblegum is an appropriate thing. It says that pale versions of Weizenbocks are a more modern invention. It says that in the historical comments. Let's see. Also, again, much less information in the characteristic ingredients section. No stat changes here. And for this one, commercial examples. Eisenbahn is out. Salchner is in for dark versions. I should probably get the actual BJCP guidelines in front of me because my own handwriting is terrible. Plank is out, and Eyinger, Distelhauser, and Leidenberger are in for pale Weizenbocks.
That's super interesting. Because Planck is in the dark section. They have a dark and a pale Weizenbock, but they only eliminated one of them, is what you're saying? Right.
Yeah, I think Planck is still in there for the dark, but is out for the light.
That's funny.
I should probably get the actual.
Motivate that.
I should get the actual guidelines in front of me here.
Because it's actually, I remember you served that in a tasting, and it wasn't that light. Like if you look at it compared to Weihenstephaner Vitus, it's like dark and compared. It's like somewhere in the middle. It's almost amber. So I would guess it's a color issue, but
well, and you know what's neat about those is for listeners that aren't aware that their importer, Be United here in the United States, does that tank canning project where they're shipping over beers while they're finishing up conditioning in the tank and then canning them in Connecticut, I think, at one of their facilities. And Plonk is one of the beers that they do that for. So if you've never ever seen it before, you might see it once in a while now, because they're canning it stateside, even though it's made in Germany, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, Be United is really cool. I worked with them a bunch when I was more involved at Old Devil Moon, before I moved to Portland. And yeah, they bring over giant tanks, they can it. I want to say it's Massachusetts, it might be Connecticut, I don't know. But yeah, they have a big facility there where they do their own canning. It's just such a cool way to do it. And the beer we got from them at Old Devil Moon, always very fresh. They were easy to work with. They always had really cool stuff that no one else had. And it's all these like kind of weird, largely non-trendy kind of German beers and other interesting stuff from Europe. Also like crazy Norwegian stuff, like fermented with Kvike and all this just cool stuff that I think your average beer bars don't carry, because they're not IPAs and they don't know what it is. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. I would definitely say if you own a bar or you run a beer program anywhere, 100% get with Be United if you're not already. So anyway, that's all the Weissbiers in section 10. Now we're on section 11. This is the British bitters. So first up is the ordinary bitter, 11A, nearly word for word the same. And I think that makes a lot of sense, that these really classic examples that aren't kind of part of like the swiftly evolving craft beer movement are largely, for the most part, not changed a ton. I think, Scott, your section is going to be the craziest one, I imagine, with IPAs and all the American beers. So, yeah,
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so word for word the same, ordinary bitter almost, except commercial examples. I think there's been a lot of movement in this kind of stuff, because I think if you're doing these kind of beers, you might not be doing that well. Or maybe they're just changing them all the time. I don't know, but Adnam's Southwold Bitter and Young's Bitter are out. Bateman's XB and Braxpear Gravity are in. I'm sure I'm pronouncing all of these things wrong, but that's okay. The folks in England, they'll know what I mean, I think. So next up, 11B, Best Bitter. Again, word for word, pretty much the same. Commercial examples: Coniston Bluebird Bitter, Shepherd Neem Master Brew a Kentish Ale, and Young's Special are out. Salopian Darwin's Origin and Surrey Hills Sherdrop. I don't know if that's my handwriting being bad or if this is just insane. I wrote, what the fuck is this, the English language? So it might not just be my handwriting.
Yeah, if they think we're right now, it's we're in the English styles and struggling with the names, so it's
right.
Just buckle your seatbelts for the German and the Belgian sections.
Seriously, it's insane. So okay, 11C strong bitter, same language, stats the same once again. Here, commercial examples: out Highland Orkney Blast, which sounds to me like a Mountain Dew flavor. Shepherd Neem, I hope I'm saying that right. Shepherd Neem, because they're all over the place now in the BJCP. Shepherd Neem Spitfire. There's one that remained on the list called Bishop's Finger. I just thought that sounds gross.
Yeah.
West Berkshire Dr. Hexter's Healer, Whitbread Pale Ale, and Young's Ramrod. Those are all out. I mean, it's like an entire list of commercial examples right there just went out. And also, why do they all sound so like pervy and gross? Like, we got Ramrods, we got like the Doctor's Healer, we got Bishop's Finger, we got the Orkney Blast. I mean, what is going on over there?
Yeah, the language norms are just different across the pond.
It's crazy. Yeah. I think they're having some fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious why they cleaned house on this one. So
they're gonna listen and call us uncultured hillbillies anyway. So it'll be.
Wow. I mean, listen to our accents. We obviously sound like cowboys. All right. So N for strong bitter. That was just the out list. N is Bateman's Triple XB, Robinson's Trooper. That's that one with the Iron Maiden like thing on it, like the Iron Maiden beer. Yeah. Robinson's Trooper. So that's in for strong bitter because and I thought that was cool because you can find that, right? It's around.
Yeah.
At least in the US. It's one of the ones that you see a lot. Summit Extra Pale Ale, which is from St. Paul, Minnesota. So that was one of the few American ones in this whole list. I will say this, though. I wanted to mention there is a brewery in like Silicon Valley area called Freewheel, and it is awesome. And if you're ever in the Bay Area and you're like a really major fan of English style ales, you should drive on down to Freewheel. For a long time, they were the only brewery in all of North America that only packaged in cask. And the day we opened, I knew from the day we opened that we were going to have a cask of Freewheel on at Old Devil Moon basically at all times. And we have now for like 5 years running. So they are really great. You should, it's one of the only places you can walk into in the US that I've seen where you have your pick of, any of like 8 or 10 beers on cask that are brewed right in the back on a system designed by an English brewer who came over and put it together for him and stuff. So anyway, Sam Smith's Old Brewery Pale Ale was replaced by their Organic Pale Ale, and that's it for strong bitter. And that's it for 11. So now we're on 12, which is Pale Commonwealth Beer. And 12A is British Golden Ale. So the language in appearance is all the same, but the SRM stat bumped down a point on the max. So it used to be 2 to 6 SRM, now it's 2 to 5. And this was like a note. They say in the ingredient section, they say lager malt. Have you guys ever heard of that?
Yeah, you hear English people refer to like Pilsner style malts as lager malt all the time. It's like just malt that's supposed to be for lagers.
I got it. I figured that, it's not like hard to come to
I almost figured it was like derisive almost. Like, they won't even call it Pilsner malt. It's just like lager malt, because it's, obviously England with the, the heavy ale drinking history and right. Only the Germans would be using lager malt. But,
right.
So they don't even give it the same name, but
I get it. It's just interesting. I think it was just the first time I'd ever seen that before. I don't know if it was in there on the old BJCP guidelines and I just missed it or not, but anyway, lager malt.
Well, and one interesting thing about that is it could be something that we don't know, not being from there, is it could be sort of like semi-proprietary way of explaining some like British malting companies, Pilsner style malts.
That's true.
Or just called lager malt or whatever.
Yeah. And I actually did write down that it's not new in the 2021 version, but it's just not something I've ever heard anyone say. So that's just kind of interesting. So, all right, British Golden Ale 12A out. We have Fuller's Discovery, Kellam Island Pale Rider, and Moreland Old Golden Hen. And in, we have Adnan's Explorer, I think is what I wrote there, and Spitfire Golden Ale. What is that one? Oh, Spitfire Golden Ale, and I made a note there because I looked that one up. I was looking things up I'd never heard of because I wanted to know like which ones are from the US that we might actually be able to get in the US. There is a brewery that makes a beer called Spitfire Golden Ale in the US, but it is not that one. So don't worry about it if that's what you're thinking. There's some place in Texas that makes one called that, but it's not that. So next up, 12B Australian Sparkling Ale. Big changes in overall impression here. No longer says the style relies on yeast character. It says fairly bitter and palm fruit ester profile. Also, no longer says that it showcases Australian ingredients. So, kind of interesting big changes, I would say. The aroma and flavor, though, pretty much word for word the way it used to be. So, it's not like they were saying that they had it wrong in terms of the flavor and the aroma, but for some reason, the overall impression changed quite a bit. You know, it's a style that has been largely defined by a single commercial example, right? Cooper's Sparkling Ale. So it's kind of like Anchor Steam or something like that. You know, that pretty much defines Australian Sparkling Ale, 12B. And so there hasn't been much change there. So let's just move on to 12C, English IPA. There were some good changes here to overall impression. They changed the word hoppy to the word bitter, right? I think we all always have a beef with like people saying this beer is hoppy, or I don't like, you know, people would always come into Old Devil Moon and say like, I don't like hoppy beers or whatever. And you're like, I know what you mean, but I hate how imprecise that is. Anyway, let's see. They changed the term, the phrase best flavor profile to most authentic profile when talking about classic British ingredients. So kind of removing, again, some language that sounded sort of opinionated, you know, which I think is cool, you know. Most authentic instead of best flavor. They removed oak is inappropriate from flavor. Because hopefully everyone is aware of that by now. I think there was that moment early in the explosion of IPAs and craft beer where everyone was like, I'm going to put the IPAs on a boat in wooden casks and like sail it around the world and sell it for like 10 times more. And it'll have some oak flavor. Like old IPAs from back in the day had some oaken flavor because they were all put in casks. I think that was just like this old school misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So that's gone. They don't even mention it anymore. Let's see. They do mention specifically that it was shipped in well-used oak casks, so that there was no oak or Brett flavor in the history section, I believe that was in. Otherwise, it's all pretty much the same. Minor OG and FG max was lowered. So the OG was 1050 to 1075. It is now 1050 to 1070. Final gravity was 1010 to 1018. It's now 1010 to 1015. The ABV is the same. I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody could ever tell the difference of like 0.005 gravity. That's just so crazy to me. Anyway.
The English styles have to be so tough with that too, because the strengths of all the English styles have changed so dramatically over the years from, wars and taxation and all that stuff that it's like pretty hard to pin down even authentic or traditional at this point. But
yeah, we'll leave that to Ron Pattinson.
Yeah.
He probably could tell you all of that right off the top of his head for all the FGs.
He could tell you like which beers changed the recipe for it in a certain year, Absolutely. Yep. So let's see. Commercial examples for English IPA. Out is the Freeminer Trafalgar IPA, Ridgeway IPA, and Summit True Brit IPA. In is Berkshire Lost Sailor IPA and Marston's Old Empire IPA. Okay. So now we're on 13.
Still no Samuel Smith India Pale Ale. Still BJCP. What's the deal? It's just so easy to get. It's frustrating.
Yeah. What do you think?
I wonder what their particular beef with adding that one would be. Because it's been around forever now and it's easy to get. It's like the only one we can get here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And they won't add it.
Yeah, I wonder why. I mean, you guys have been doing tons of tastings recently. Do you feel like it's not traditional enough or something?
I couldn't tell you that I have that good of a pulse on what's traditional and what's not, but I would say I would say there's nothing in it that is glaringly, if anything, it's like at the margins, like it's like maybe like a razor's edge thing. It's just not that apparent.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, in like blind tastings in the past, I've had friends that are trying to put together panels for me that just assumed that beer should count, so it ended up being on the panel. And it tastes fairly classic to me. You get some of that like woody, herbal English style hop character, but maybe, there's probably something we don't know about how that's produced that's maybe, holding BJCP back a little bit for that.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly don't know. Just by virtue of being Americans, we don't know a ton about the British scene, so there's probably something going on there. Maybe one of our British fans will write in and tell us what we're getting wrong here. We've got it. We're huge in England. I mean, we haven't even released this podcast yet, but I can just tell. All right. Now we're on 13, which is British brown beer, 13A, dark mild. The appearance no longer says that a few paler examples exist, but the comments do mention that there are some, but they're rare, so that's not really much of a change. The SRM range bumped up slightly. I'm not even going to say all the numbers. I feel like that just gets a little old. Oh, are you guys seeing me?
Nope.
Yeah.
You just left the screen, but we can hear you.
Oh, funny. I think I know why. This camera, it turns out, can overheat.
Oh.
And I
thought we got hacked by the Brits after that last section.
Yeah. I'm just gonna fire up. I'm just screwing everything up here. Let's see here. I'm just gonna fire up a different camera. See if it works. Boom.
There he is. He's back.
There he is. Oh, I'm very close to it. All right. Well, we knew something would go wrong. It'd be weird if it didn't.
But now we can clearly see the Beer Scholar logo.
Oh, yes. There we go. All right. Well, such is life. I had a feeling. It would have been crazy if on our first attempt, everything just went perfectly.
Yeah, that would have been a bad omen anyway, so.
Right. So, fuck it. We're doing it live, as what's his face would say. Rush Limbaugh. Okay, so let's see. What were we on there? Oh yeah, dark mild. Yeah. So mouthfeel now says that it should not be flat, watery, or thin, which is honestly an issue with some of the U.S. versions I've had. Right, it's a tough beer to do well. To do something with big flavor and mouthfeel, but which has an ABV of like 3 to 3.8% is just difficult to do. So that's, I think, a reasonable comment to make, although it does come across as kind of funny. Out is Banks Mild and Cane's Dark Mild, Highgate Dark Mild, and Rudgate Ruby Mild. In is Green King, Double X Mild, and Hobson's Champion Mild, and Mighty Oaks Oscar Wild. That's kind of a fun name. All right, British Brown Ale, 13B.
From a Cicerone study perspective, removing all the ones that just say dark mild after for memorizing commercial examples, just that sucks.
Right. It's so true. Yeah, they got rid of a bunch of them. Now it's
and added Mighty Oak Oscar Wilde. Like this.
Do you know them? Okay. They're not a US, I don't think.
No.
Yeah. So let's see. British Brown Ale, 13B. Overall impression adds that it is a little stronger than most average UK beers. And the ABV range was bumped up slightly to 4.2 to 5.9% rather than 4.0 to 5.4%. So British Brown Ale on the rise, I guess. In we have AleSmith Nut Brown Ale, which is a San Diego, solid San Diego brewer there. The maker of Speedway Stout. I think that's probably their most famous beer. You guys are more SoCal than me, so you would know.
Yep. Speedway for sure.
Yeah. And then also in Cigar City Maduro Brown Ale. So the Tampa, Florida-based makers of High Life IPA.
And did that get moved from American Brown?
I guess it must have. I don't know. I'm just gonna
do a quick check on American Brown Ale and see if I'm looking now at the 2015. Yeah, Cigar City Maduro Brown was was American Brown Ale in the 2015 guidelines. So that's a big change, because I didn't see many of those where one just got put into a totally different category. That's a pretty big change.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. Yeah, I didn't. I don't think I had American Brown in my section, so I didn't notice that. But actually, maybe I did. Yeah,
it creates an interesting study dilemma for the future. We'll talk about it more, but it's like, to know that category for exam or blind tasting stuff, you just sort of, at least on the U.S. side, had to know Sam Smith, Nut Brown, and then maybe Newcastle Brown Ale, but it doesn't seem like that's the more popular one to grab. It's way less characterful, but now they've added two American-made, British style brown ales. I wonder how hard that's going to be, like tasting those alongside like an American style brown ale, if that's going to be that much different. But
I can tell you,
that might have to be a separate episode or video. Just
totally.
What's going on with English Brown? That's what's going on with British Brown.
Well, I can tell you the American Brown
together and tell everybody what the differences are.
Yeah. The American Brown Ale, which is 19C, that didn't change at all, except that Avery Ellie's Brown Ale was added and Anchor's Breckles Brown was removed. So, but you were saying that Maduro used to be in there also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I must have missed that. So that's interesting. All right. Witchwood Hobgoblin got knocked out of British Brown Ale, 13B, so that's donezo. And next up is 13C English Porter. That one is almost entirely unchanged. Slightly more historical information was added. Same stats. Nothing was booted, but Bateman's Salem Porter and Fuller's and Sam Smith remain the only ones that are widely available in the U.S. So not a lot of options there for English Porter if you want to try one in the U.S. 14 Scottish Ale. Much improved intro here. A lot of historical intro and brewing technique info. I learned a new term reading about these beers in the BJCP guidelines here called underlet mashing. I Googled it. It took me to, of course, straight to Ron Pattinson's blog, where he explains it essentially as a way of doing a step mash where you pump hot water into the mash from the bottom and then mix it through with a rake, which supposedly affected flavor somehow, but he wasn't able to translate the science of it or anything. So, it remains to be seen if that's meaningful in any way, in terms of changing.
So the grains in the mash tun and then the water is put in through the bottom.
Right. I don't know why that would.
I would assume, you'd get less, I'm assuming you'd get less splashing, maybe less oxidation, less T2N formation potentially. But yeah, it's all theory. It's the first I've ever heard of it. So
yeah,
I've heard of that happening when breweries, because some breweries do that have entirely separate lauter tons. I think they kind of move it in through the bottom. I think that's how it's transferred, but I don't know. But
yeah, underlet mashing was apparently a thing that a lot of Scottish brewers did back in the day. I don't think a lot of them are doing it anymore. But
okay.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. So 14A Scottish Light. I really liked the changes I saw in this whole section. I liked that one too. The overall impression changed from sort of emphasizing like caramel and butterscotch like flavors and stating that it's never roasty, to like giving it this broader malt focus and noting that it may have like some slight roast dryness, which it didn't say about that in the past. And this was just one of those things where I had gone to Scotland a few years back and had a bunch of beer there. And when I looked at the BJCP afterward, I was like, it was kind of like how they did the Czech beers in like the 2008 version, where you're just like, have you guys ever been to Czech Republic? Like, what are you talking about? So anyway, that was my impression, was that they had just gotten it very wrong on the older versions. Again, not an expert on English or Scottish or any of these kind of beers, but just my own experience was that those descriptions didn't seem right to me. But I will say this though, I love those styles and I think they're super underrated, and it's a shame that they're so hard to get. But
yeah.
In aroma, it was the first time I've ever seen the descriptor lady fingers that I recall, so that was kind of fun. They bumped the max SRM up 17 to 25. It used to be 17 to 22. The ABV got a slight bump up. It used to max out at 3.2. Now it maxes out at 3.3. So big changes there. Bellhaven's Best was added. McEwen's 60 was added, and or McEwen's 60 is the only other one on the list. So there's not a lot of them out there. And Scottish Heavy 14B, as expected, very similar language to 14A. Here the SRM came down slightly. Was 13 to 22, now it's 12 to 20. Out Broughton, I know I'm saying that wrong. It looks like Broughton, but I know that Green Mantle Ale, Caledonia Smooth, and Tenet Special.
Oh man, why did they have to get rid of one of the best commercial example names?
Right.
I mean, Caledonia Smooth. I mean, like
a pack of cigarettes. You're
that's
never
the
going to
thing.
forget that.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's just
that is
classic.
true.
Yeah, that's the guy's name in the cigarette commercial in the 70s and 80s.
So
who's that? Oh, that's Caledonia Smooth going over there. Oh, is he lighting up? Yeah, you know he is.
Well, what's crazy is there was nothing added. So they removed 3 things, did not add any. Which makes you just think like, well, these beers are disappearing, basically, right?
That's too bad.
I know, yeah. So 14C Scottish Export, super similar to 14A and 14B. Same SRM change. It's 1220 now. It was 1322. Obviously, you'd need like a machine to be able to see the difference there, I think. Here we do have some new ones. Broughton's Weejock 80 is now in for another one that was from the same maker called Exciseman's. Caledonian Edinburgh Castle is in. McEwen's 80 is in. Track Air Bear Ale is in. Out Orkney Dark Island Pelican McPelican's Scottish Style Ale, great name. Weasel Boy Plaid Ferret Scotch Ale is out also. So really good names here in the English and the Scottish stuff.
I was like, this is a great switch for studying for Cicerone commercial examples, because yeah, those are easier.
Right.
Weasel Boy Plaid Ferret.
I mean, that is epic. That is epic. Did you have that one memorized for your exam?
Yes, absolutely. I studied. It took me a lot longer to do commercial examples. The vital stats came easier, but I studied until the week of, until I was getting it 100%, until I could name 4 from 2 different countries all the way through.
Wow.
Absolutely.
You've got a brain for that, I think.
It's easy. It's just, you can't leave easy points on the table for that.
I agree.
You just need to do it.
So, like, actually, we only got through half of the ones that I have, but we've already talked for almost an hour. So I kind of feel like maybe we should just say...
the more we can split it up. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, split up some more. It's, I guess, my gut feeling while going through it is like it's not totally the most titillating blow by blow stuff. I don't know. I mean, for hardcore beer geeks, I guess it's important, but it's not wildly exciting every second of it. But yeah, so that's good.
But if it's for people who are going to do an oral exam, and basically the advice that's always seemed to be given is like, just you got to know the BJCP. It's the Bible for section 2 of the syllabus. So that's
right. That's right. Yep. So yeah, the Bible. It's tasting beer and the BJCP guidelines, at least for level 2.
Right.
So yeah, I guess should we call it? You guys got anything you wanna talk about? Wanna talk some trash or something?
We have to build up some more podcast courage, I think, and then we'll be talking plenty of trash.
Well, then we can have a grind. This is what grinds Chris's gears, section.
Oh, geez.
Or we can just have those be little 5-minute mini episodes. It's just rants.
Yeah. I mean, they don't all have to follow the same format. I think we'll have all variety of. Well, all the options are available to us. This is our first bullshit attempt to just get the technology working right, which obviously didn't happen exactly, and just give it a go. So we only have upward to go from here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll only get better and better. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
And I've recorded podcasts before. This one is going to sound better than the first one me and my buddy recorded.
Oh, so there you go. Yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah, we're gonna get this dialed in, and we're gonna sound great. We're gonna look great. At least our video will look great. We might not, but yeah. This is
again. We'll
fun.
leave that up to the fans. That's a whole nother episode.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully, folks are. I think I've had lots of people tell me over the years that I should be doing a podcast. I hope folks are kind of excited to see that there's going to be more Beer Scholar content coming. We're going to have a conversation in a very near future episode where we talk about how we all met and what we're up to and where we've been and all that. And so that'll be cool. We're going to have guests on later. We're going to be live streaming to Beer Scholar Discord channel server. There's just like a ton of stuff in the works that I'm super excited about, and I'm stoked to be working with you guys and making some stuff happen. I know it's all taking longer than we wish it would, but here we are, finally recording, so it feels good.
Yeah, stick with us, everyone. It's going to be really fun, I think. It might take us a minute to help establish kind of a good listening and educational community the way we exactly want to, but we're gonna try to really bring our A game and make sure it stays interesting and provocative and easy to engage with, hopefully. So
yeah, I'm really excited about the community building aspect. I mean, I think the reason we are all into beer, we all like beer, we all like to have a few drinks. I think it's safe to just say that. And but it's trite to even say it, but it's like, obviously we're all here for the community. We love the community. We wouldn't be in it to this, at this level, if not for the great community around it. And so I'm really excited to help organize and build a community of people who are into this educational stuff, because I do feel like there isn't a great one right now, like a kind of gathering place, a community space. I'm real excited about this Discord server. I'm hoping we'll be live streaming on there. We'll be on there weekly, answering questions for people who are studying for exams. And I think it's going to be super fun. So I'm excited about it. And anyway, we're just going to call it. This is the end of the first episode. It's only going to get better from here. And thank you for listening. And thanks for hanging out, Scott and Chris.
Later, guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
Cheers.